I'm a Postmates delivery driver based in Northwest Las Vegas, Nevada, and I've seen some weird shit. I was browsing this sub and I came across the old post by the guy from the U.S. Forest Service Search and Rescue, talking about all the weird stuff he's seen and heard over the course of his career. I've been running Postmates here for a while now, and I can guarantee that rural areas do not have a monopoly on bizarre and creepy shit. I thought I would share some stories of what I've seen on the job. For clarity, I live in the Las Vegas, Nevada suburb of Centennial Hills on the outskirts of the city. I deliver around there, in Summerlin and in North Las Vegas, in the inner city near downtown. I work the night shift often because there's less competition for offers. The first thing that you'll notice if you hang out in the outskirts of Vegas at unconventional hours is all the beat up cars that are sitting around empty at every dead end directly facing the desert. If you don't believe me, go to one of these roads in a residential area near or after nightfall and you'll always see at least one of them just sitting there with no reason. They're never there in the daytime and they are always facing away from the desert towards the city. Some of them I've seen idling with the lights on and no one inside the vehicle. To this day, I've never met anyone who has been able to tell me what those cars are doing there or who they belong to. One time I was delivering McDonald's to an apartment complex and accidentally ended up on the wrong floor. A middle-aged white guy, one of those types that looks really tough without you really even being able to tell why, answered the door. He took one look at me and said, "Is it done?" I thought he had meant the food delivery, so I was like, "Yep, here you go." He gestured toward the burger bag. "So the proof's in there? Surprised the mess isn't leaking out." At this point, I was weirded out enough that I glanced at my phone and realized I was at the wrong address. I promptly turned around and bolted without saying anything. I suppose I'm lucky there were some other people walking around the apartment lot at the time. If there weren't, I suspect I would have gotten shot before I made it back to the car. I was out in the early morning, about 1:15 in the morning, coming back from a delivery in the lots near Lone Mountain, where there are large abandoned fields of dirt which separate the gigantic McMansions. When I saw a huge blaze of light in the middle of one of the fields, I pulled over to see what it was, and it turned out that there was a huge SUV on fire. No one else was around, just me and the burning car. I decided I'd call 911 and report it. I told the responder what was happening and the location of the lot. He sighed, "This isn't a number for prank calls, buddy. Tell your friends to knock this shit off. It's been long enough." Then he hung up. I was baffled as to what his reaction was about, but I decided to keep moving. Exactly 4 months later, I'm coming back from the same delivery along the same route. I once again see the burning SUV in the exact same position as before. Checked the time, and sure enough, it was 1:15. I mentioned later to my mom that this happened, and she was surprised. She said she'd seen a van burning in that lot late at night, 10 years ago. Suffice it to say, I avoid that route any time of night now. One Sunday afternoon, I took a large delivery from a natural smoothie place to one of the giant houses at the edge of Summerlin. For those unfamiliar with Vegas districts, this is where all the really rich, well-connected people live. I don't really remember what the place looked like, but I know it was practically a mansion. A young woman in her early 20s opened the door. She was strikingly attractive, and she was wearing a tight-fitting white dress. I was obviously turned on a little bit, but there was also something a tiny bit unsettling about her. She smiled and asked me if I could put the delivery bag in the kitchen. I followed her into the house and noticed that everything was bright, clean, and immaculately polished. The kitchen was a little ways into the house, and it adjoined to the living room. In the living room there were 2 white couches, one of them empty, and the other containing 5 more women, all unbelievably beautiful, and all wearing the same white dress. I set the bag on the kitchen counter and turned to the woman who greeted me at the door to get the all clear. I found her staring at me, smiling. She was just so entrancing that I returned the stare, gazing into her eyes. "Now you want to sit down on the couch," she said serenely. As she said it, I remember that an intense, pleasurable feeling started coursing throughout my body. It was from her. I sensed her eyes, her words. I had to follow them. After that, I don't recall anything. My next memory is driving down Charleston Boulevard several hours later. I didn't feel any different, but that night I did notice that there was an odd bruise on the back of my neck. with a tiny skin blemish I didn't have before in the center of it. Months later, the bruise is gone, but I still have the blemish. Being that being horny makes me dumb, I'm ashamed to say that I've tried to revisit the house on several occasions since. But I legitimately can't remember anything about where it was located, and I've never been able to find it again. A few months back, around 10 p.m., I got a ping for a restaurant that was miles from where I was, which usually signifies an order that no one else wants to take. It looked like an easy pickup and drop off, so I was a bit confused as to why no one wanted to take it. I take literally every order that comes my way, so of course I accepted it. The pickup was a little diner on Decatur Boulevard, which looked like it had been there since the late 80s at least. I was in and out of there quick, and nothing really seemed problematic or off. The drop-off was close nearby on a street filled with ancient, sprawling one-story homes. It was a decaying house with several dead trees in the front yard. It looked like no one had taken care of it for decades. Granted, that's par for the course in some of the older districts of Vegas, but the strangest thing was that the lots on either side of it had been completely destroyed. There had been houses there once, that much was clear, but not any longer. There was nothing like that anywhere else on the street that I saw. Every other lot was filled. I had a feeling in the pit of my stomach that I shouldn't go up to the door, but the delivery had to be completed or I'd get in trouble with corporate. I went up the walk and knocked. There was no answer. I knocked again harder. No answer. I figured I'd call the number attached to the order before I just left it there. It rang a few times, then picked up. There was silence for a few seconds, and then a click. The call ended. At this point, I was completely ready to nope out of there. So I put the food on the doorstep and turned to leave. I had made it halfway down the walk when I heard the door creaking open behind me. I turned to see who was there. There was no one. The door stood open, revealing a dark and dilapidated hallway, which looked even more decrepit than the rest of the house. It extended back further than the light would allow me to see, but I had the distinct feeling that someone or something was watching me from the end of the hallway. When I made it back to my car, I was literally shaking. All I wanted to do was go far away from whatever was in that hallway. I didn't take any other orders that night, and I didn't get any sleep either. In the morning, I decided to call the number again to see if anyone would answer. It had been disconnected. I have plenty more stories if y'all want to hear them at some other point. Let me know any questions you have in the comments and I'll try and answer them as best as I can.